Welcome, everyone. Sprint 31, Fleet version 4.59, codename Gallium. Got some cool stuff to show off today. We're going to be starting with the MDM features. To go over the agenda, we demo user stories by feature category instead of by product group. We always read the user story aloud before showing the demo and explain why it's important to customers. What pain does this alleviate for our users? We always show where the documentation for the feature lives during the demo. And we include a list of bug fixes and improvements for reference, but we do not demo them unless they contain an important change that should be noted. So looking forward to digging in, got some cool stuff lined up today. First up is Victor and Rachel deploy SCEP certificates from Indes, but actually before that, I should hand over to Sharon.
Yeah, okay, and you were right. First thing is Victor and Rachel, and as you all remember, Victor moved to MDM team, so it's a two-team effort. Victor, Rachel, who wants to start? Take it.
All right. As an IT admin, basically I want to get Wi-Fi profiles on my machine, on my end user's machine, and those Wi-Fi profiles are authenticated with the certificate. So I want all that to happen automatically, and to get those certificates, one of the ways to get those certificates is to use the SCEP protocol, and the certificate authority issuing those certificates would be Microsoft ADCS. That's going to be running the Endes server, and the Endes is the server that talks SCEP. So like high level, how this works is that the Mac talks to Fleet using the SCEP protocol, and then Fleet forwards that SCEP traffic to Microsoft Endes. And the value that Fleet provides here as the middleman is to be able to get the one-time passcodes from Windows Endes. This adds an extra level of authentication. Also, if a macOS device has been offline for a while and then it tries to get a certificate via SCEP, Fleet will notice that and reissue the profile with an updated one-time passcode. Also later, we will add a renewal of certificates. So that's coming later. So this is the first pass of this larger feature. Okay, so how does the configuration look from the front end? You would go to Settings, Integrations, Mobile Device Management. And then here is the new item, Simple Certificate Enrollment Protocol. And we call out that we currently only support Endes. We can edit this. And this first item is for the SCEP server that talks SCEP protocol. And then these next three items are just needed to get the one-time passcode. So we do some validation here. If I put in some bad values here and try to save, we get an error here. So that's the front end. So let's jump into kind of the demo that I have pre-prepared for the full process, and also show how it works in the API. So here's how this looks in the API. Fleet config, kind of the same thing you saw. So I'm just gonna play this part of the video because it'll show the full flow. Command with a real password, and this command returns the configs. So as you can see, it returns a hidden password. So this password is actually encrypted in the database. It's protected by the server private key, so it cannot be extracted by the front end after it was set. In fact, in my case, my private key is held in 1Password. It's not even on my machine, so this password is pretty secure. So now that we've set it up and we validated that these paths are good, the next thing to do is to create profile that will request a certificate from my Mac. Okay, I brought up a sample profile. So this is a Apple config profile. This is the payload type. And there's some variables here. First, we have the SCAP challenge. So specifying this variable, Fleet will see this variable and will retrieve the SCAP challenge and insert it here so that the device can use the proper challenge when requesting a certificate. The other thing to note is that we have this proxy URL. So this URL is unique for host/profile. So Fleet will also insert the proper URL over here. There is one more variable we support, which I'm not using right now. And that variable is this FleetVar host end user email IDP, which comes from an identity provider. MyVM doesn't have that variable right now, but I will test it later by manually setting it in the database. So this variable would normally go in your CN. So let's change this name to MDS demo. Let's go ahead and save this, and now let's add it to Fleet. On controls, custom settings, and I will add it here, and I will bring up my VM for a second. So we can see the profiles I have here and things in my keychain. So we'll go ahead and add the profile I just saved. It's this one, open, add. And the profiles are pushed out every 30 seconds or so. So it should automatically go out. So let's go ahead and wait for it to show up. And here we go. So we see the profile here, and if I click on this profile, we see the actual path where it got the certificate from, which is the host UID and the profile UID. We have the NDES demo certificate name, which we put in here. And here's the actual certificate. Now you see these other two, these are kind of intermediate certificates. This is the certificate that was fetched to kind of wrap the certificate request. And this is just a local certificate that was generated as part of the process. And both of these are cleared out automatically. If I close and reopen my keychain, they're not going to be there. Yep, so we just have this one certificate. Now, if we go to our MDES server, so this is our MDES server in another VM. Let's refresh this. Let's open up the last certificate. And we see MDES demo right here. So we see that this certificate showed up as issued in the certification authority on the Windows server that's running MDES. Okay, so now that we've covered like the main use case, let's touch on some of the issues. Okay, so that's kind of as the video said, the main use case. I want to show a couple more things. One is we added some additional error handling if this whole process fails. So I'll show how that looks like right here. Pause. Okay, so we saw this fail. Let's click into it. So we have the custom message here, and this password cache is full. We cannot populate this this variable. That's one error. Another error that could happen is if it can't reach the NDIS server. That's one thing that we should also see an error for. Another type of error that will happen is if we use like an invalid variable name, like maybe it's misspelled. That should also error out. And currently we're only supporting the macOS config profiles. So we should get an error if we're trying to use fleet variables in DDM or Windows profiles. Let's go back and talk about the config in a little bit more detail. All right, so that's kind of the main UI and API flow. I did want to show a couple more things. So I wanted to point out a couple things in GitOps. Let's see if we can cause it to fail. So let's put it. So this is how this config would look in GitOps. So I'm just demonstrating a good config and a bad config here. And a bad config for the admin URL. And let's do dry run. Yeah, and you see one of the errors when it's a validation error because we validate those paths. And the other one is what happens when you have a good config. Let's go back and use the correct URL and do a dry run again. And so the dry run actually validates both URLs. But since it's a dry run, we would expect this still to be blank on the server. Let's go back and do a real run. Go back to the server, refresh. And now we got our settings that we can see. This password is encrypted. So, all right, that kind of covers the things I wanted to show. And the last thing is where kind of the documentation. The main documentation is going to be in this feature guide. We're highlighting the main use case for these certificates, but besides Wi-Fi, they can also be used for like VPN and a few other things. And so this guide is going to be published with the release. That's all I had. Back to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Victor and Rachel. Next thing.
Before we move on, Dave, would you mind asking your question for the recording?
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering about passing serial number like UPN or email address as variables. The certificate for the client certificate is going to be used, like you said, for VPN or radius authentication, where you need to know that service needs to know the serial number of the device to identify it. So just wondering, and I think the documentation around the types of data are actually in this article here.
Yeah, so right. So you're talking about this for authentication or to put that information into the CN?
Into the CN.
Okay. Well, currently we're only supporting the IDP email because that is the main customer's requirement that we're building this for. But yeah, we could easily add additional things into that CN.
The serial number, we get all of the variables that the Apple MDM protocol supports, right, Victor? Like with the ones that are built-ins, like the serial number is one, computer name, I think is another one, right?
I'm talking about this that we're putting into the profile.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Like we added that, Fleet added that variable, but there's also these, right? I can't remember the exact format, but there's several that Apple supports
out
of the box.
Yes,
and there's,
yes.
Yeah, Marco just linked to a doc. One of those is serial.
Okay.
And then there's some other ones. And then custom variables, if you're using GitHub, right, you can put any variable in your repo and reference that variable in a profile as well.
Right,
So-
but with the GitOps flow, that variable is going to be the same. The
Correct.
same for all devices. This variable that's prefixed with the fleet var, this is inserted by the server. So this could be unique per host.
Yep. But yeah, if you wanted to add some, I guess, some non-unique variable that was used in each profile, you could add it to your repo as well. And that's
Yeah, I
That's
think
what I like to hear.
users don't really want to put non-unique, or like they want to put like definitely the serial number. So like that
Mhm.
article around the the basic variables that the host provides via macOS, are those supported with this feature?
Yes, I mean those variables are supported for all profiles, right? We should
Yeah.
just try them and add them, add
We
that
have.
comment to this article.
Okay, cool.
So there's this the SCEP article that I linked to here. We've done some testing too for another use case to connect to a tool with Okta Verify. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Victor, Rachel, great work. And back to you, Sharon.
Okay, and thanks again. Next, we had a request for a customer to use a custom URL for all Apple MDM usage. Tim and Jacob will explain why and how they did it. Tim, you take it?
Yeah, I got this.
Okay.
So quick overview here. I'll just read the user story. As an IT admin working under strict security controls, I want to use a different URL that I control for the MDM routes in Fleet so that I can say that MDM routes don't need a special certificate, MTLS, to communicate with Fleet. Just to kind of give a quick overview, visual overview, what that means. All traffic goes to a single URL from Fleet D and MDM. We're basically kind of simply, deceptively simply, not simply, moving our MDM traffic to a custom URL. So customers can do really whatever they want from a network level to segregate traffic or kind of identify MDM traffic. So I'm going to tempt the demo gods and do this live. I'm going to do that. I have my host in here, and as you'll notice, it is not enrolled into MDM. So we're going to do an MDM enrollment here live. I'm going to show you what the settings look like here. We have our Fleet web address set to just notice standard here. And our new config, it's going to be under advanced options, and it's going to be MDM3, my third iteration of testing this. So this is our custom URL we're using just for MDM traffic. So how I'm going to show this is I have two ngrok tunnels here. If you see here on the left, this is our standard tunnel, and you'll see our typical console and mostly Fleet D traffic, OS query traffic going on there. And you'll see this quiet channel over here with MDM. So I'm going to do a manual enrollment here. I'm going to open my device page. Yes, MDM is off or not enrolled. I'm going to download that enrollment profile. My 29th attempt, by the way. Let me open it. It's manual enrollment, so I have to open it here. As you see, it is MDM3. And I'm gonna see if we can see this in the background. There we go. See this happen live. I'm gonna install this profile. You should see some stuff come in pretty quickly here, even before I put in my password. We'll see a lot more come in here. Oops. There we go. Cool. And there we go. One thing to kind of keep in note is, and we have this in the UI. Let me go back to the admin page here. We have some warnings around this, as I think we've discussed. The expectation here, two things. One is that this custom URL does resolve to the same IP as your your Fleet web address, I should say. The other thing that we kind of put in text down here, if you're changing this, your hosts enrolled under previous URLs will no longer work at some point. So kind of our instructions there are to re-enroll hosts using once you have changed this value. From the customer request perspective, this is the expectation here is, I guess, you're setting this up before you're starting the enrollment process. So that's what we're expecting. That's what we're going to continue to test as well. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Tim and Jacob. Next, sorry, go ahead.
Great demo, Tim. Love the dual ingrok windows. I was just going to point out that's a little bit of the gotcha with this feature for customer success to keep in mind, that this is intended at the beginning of a migration. We have a great message there in the UI, so hopefully that won't get missed. But sometimes people kind of gloss over the UI notes and turn things on. So we want to make sure that any customers that turn on this feature are aware of that side effect and that they're going to have to re-enroll MDM.
Yep. Thanks again, Tim and Jacob. And next, Luke, you will forgive us. Hopefully, we are a little bit outside of the protocol of the meeting. We were asked to tell how we can enforce disk encryption on Linux systems. And Lucas, so this is not something we deliver in this release, but Lucas did a thorough investigation of what we cannot do, and more importantly, what we can do, and we'll present it. So this will be developed next sprint. But Lucas, take it.
Hey, okay, yeah, this shouldn't take long. Just to like summarize the plan we have in mind so that people are aware. All right, yeah, the plan is to do this encryption with what's called LUKS2, which is a encryption standard for Ubuntu and Fedora workstations. We're not like, obviously they're Linux, but Linux is a too broad term. We have servers and different distributions, a million of them. So we're going to focus on Ubuntu and Fedora workstations with GNOME installed as desktop environment. So the effort is threefold. First, we have to detect whether or not like the device is encrypted, the disk is encrypted or not. Usually what we are interested in is about the root partition. Again, Linux is super like, there are many different forms of having partitions, but we're gonna keep focused on the standard ones, like the most common ones, which is a root partition. Then the other objective is to enforce this encryption. If you enroll an Ubuntu machine to a fleet and it's not encrypted, we would ideally want to enforce it. And the third one is escrowing the disk encryption key, which is basically fleet having a key that will allow an admin to decrypt if they get the workstation back. So the plan for next sprint, hopefully for next demo, will be to implement A and C, meaning that if a user has a machine that's enrolled to fleet and uses Ubuntu or Fedora and the disk is encrypted, we're going to try to escrow the key, right? So we're going to implement A and C. I'll probably go into more details on the next demo, but that's kind of the whole plan we have for next sprint.
Thank you, Lucas. And just to summarize, just in a few words, we cannot enforce the encryption of a disk, but we can audit if it's encrypted or not. So we will show that, and also we will be taking the key and storing it for later usage. But that's coming up, so stay tuned. And that is the MDM features. And back to you, Luke.
Cool, thank you. Thanks for sharing, Lucas. That's really exciting. We're quickly becoming the most mature enterprise MDM for Linux. It's been kind of ignored by a lot of the market, but it's really exciting and a great way for us to get our foot in the door because you know, those still an important segment of the hosts that need to be covered, and now we're at a point of being able to do a lot more than most any other product. Thank you, Endpoint Ops, for showing off your MDM features. And now over to a big feature really excited about from MDM. And I'll ask George to intro that.
All righty, Haziel is going to be showing us, I believe, a live demo.
Yes, so apologies in advance for a couple of things. I'm going to be screen sharing a MacBook Air that I have here on my desk, and that plus ngrok and all that jazz just makes it a little bit slow. So in real life, it's not that slow. It's just like all of the various networking layers that are happening here. But yeah, so this was a really big feature, but I think it came together really well. Again, this was a big team effort. Everyone contributed to this one piece or another. But yeah, the user story is, as a client platform engineer, aka IT admin, I want to block the end user screen while installing software and running a script after the end user completes macOS Setup Assistant, so that I can enforce required configuration before the end user can click around on their desktop. So yeah, this provides a lot of value for customers to be able to configure what sort of software is set up on end users' machines before the setup process is finalized. And yeah, it just makes that unboxing experience a lot smoother. The machine would be a lot easier to just get started with the right software with this feature. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like in the UI. So if you go to controls and go to setup experience, this layout has changed a bit. You can see here that we have this set of steps now. The end user authentication, setup assistant, and bootstrap package, all of that existed previously. The new pieces are this install software and this run script section. And this is the order that everything will run in when the setup experience is actually happening during setup assistant. So if you click install software, you will see this UI here. And this is kind of a preview of what the UI looks like on the end user's machine. And so if you click add software, you'll see your macOS software that you can add to be installed during setup experience. And so I've got one of each type of app here. I've got Bear, which is an App Store app that was brought in through VPP. There's WhatsApp, which is a fleet maintained app. And then this Zoom is a custom package, custom installer. So I'm going to go ahead and add all of them. And next we have the run script section. So this can just be any shell script that you upload in order to have this run at the end of the process. So I'm going to go ahead and add this one. That's just a really simple echo. And yeah, so that should be pretty much it. I have, like I said, a MacBook Air that's already enrolled in ABM and set up to use this local fleet server as the MDM server. So I should be able to come over here, and I've kind of pre-cooked this a bit. So this is, we're here at the remote management part of setup assistant. And so it's going to happen. I'm going to go ahead and click enroll. And what's going to happen is the usual ADE flow is going to happen. This would be when we would do like all of the other stuff like Bootstrap package and things like that. But we're also doing profile installation here. So all of that is going to finish first. Part of the ADE flow is that we send an install enterprise application command to install Fleet D. And so Fleet D is what's going to power the UI that we see in the actual like installation of all of the software and the running of the script. And so again, this is where y'all will have to bear with me a bit because this is all being sent and downloaded from my workstation. So it's not going to be the fastest process, but yeah, eventually Fleet D will come online. The device will enroll through Orbit, and then Orbit will start the software installation process and show the UI. So we just have to kind of wait a little bit for it. I see there's a lot of chat, so I'm going to look at the chat real quick. Doesn't look super relevant. So yeah, we need some elevator music when there's some of these
Can I see some
long
questions
pauses.
while we wait?
Yeah, sure.
Any future plans to like customize what? Because right now it looks like we're dumping the name of the script into the setup, at least
Yes.
from the little snippet there. Any and the name of the app makes sense. Any future plans to be able to customize those instead of run script.sh, say maybe more descriptive message of what the admin wants to display there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I don't think that was planned, but you might be able to get around that. Well, I don't know. I don't remember if we validate that the file actually ends in .sh or not. We might validate that. So, but yeah, I think that would be cool because yeah, setup.sh or whatever can seem kind of weird. So yeah,
And
that's a good idea.
the software installs follow the same method that we currently install software from, right? It's the same
Yes.
process, scripts and whatnot, BPP.
Yep, it's all the same machinery. Yeah. So yeah, so this has to download and install Fleet D, which is of course Fleet Desktop and Orbit and OS Query. And then once that is up and running, it has to download and install Swift Dialog. So those are basically like the prerequisites for this. Yes, awesome. Oh no, don't fall asleep on me. Sweet. So yeah, so this is the UI. Again, this is like a little laggy here because this is, screen sharing over the network. But you can see that we've got the different software that we added and the script. And so now this is just kind of going to be cooking for a bit. This icon is customizable. So this is if you, in the Fleet UI or in your config, we have that like custom icon that you can set. And so this will read from that and use that icon. It defaults to the Fleet logo, but it's customizable for our customers. Okay, cool. So this is something that we noticed during testing. There's some apps that I actually didn't realize. I thought that Setup Assistant was completely controlled by the operating system and there was no way to paint anything during it, like to do GUI stuff at all, but you definitely can. And so this is kind of a side effect of that, like Zoom pops up this thing when it's done installing. So that's kind of annoying. But yeah, that's something that we are aware of and not super sure if there's a workaround there. But yeah. Marco, that was the conclusion, right? That there's not like like some config or some flag or something that they can set on Zoom.
I just
Oh, I
found
see
that
Dave
this
posted about that Zoom
just
IT
found
installer.
right, yeah, the Zoom for IT admins. There's like there's regular download page there where you download like Zoom, but there is also another one for IT, and then that one doesn't pop up when installed. So I think that's solution for
Nice.
Zoom.
Cool. All right, sweet. So we're getting some updates here on the UI, slowly but surely through this slow network. This progress bar updates, and then we kind of switch these little UI elements here as things are installed.
And the other thing that I want to mention that might not be obvious right now is actually the script is not running yet. It is being held to run after all of the applications have been successfully or unsuccessfully installed, and then it gets executed.
Yes, that's a great point. And actually, maybe something that we can, maybe like a fast follow-up here is there's actually another icon that Swift Dialog has that's like not the loading, but just like a little 3-dot thing. And in the back end, we're already tracking pending versus running. So maybe we can make it a little bit smarter and have that like static thing when it's just pending. And then when it actually is executing, we flip it to this little spinny guy. That could be something that we follow up with just to make it a little clearer. But we're almost there.
Do we have an idea of how much faster it would be if it wasn't happening over a proxy?
Quite a bit faster. Yeah, I'm probably like 1.5 times as fast, maybe twice as fast.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Great. So now you can see they were able, like, once I guess I kind of went through that really quickly, but once the process is done, the user is able to close out of the window like I just did and continue with the rest of Setup Assistant. So, and just a heads up, I ran into this issue earlier. So, screen share might do some weird stuff here in a second, but hopefully it'll make it through. All right, that's the time zone. Okay, yeah. So it did this to me earlier while I was testing this flow out as well. I'm gonna come back to that real quick. Basically, I think for whatever reason, screen sharing doesn't survive that transition over to the desktop. So I'm gonna reboot the machine and I'll show you all that the software actually did install. But for now, we can look over here at the activity real quick. This is a bug. This is a known bug. We need to fix this, the attribution of the activities. But you can see that all of these guys ran, including the little script that we had. So we did get the expected output. And then all the software shows up as well. Okay, so laptop is back up. Okay, cool. So if we go to Launchpad, sweet. So our apps are here and they are real. So we can open these guys up and yeah. So that's pretty much it. Any more questions?
Looks great to me. Thank you so much, Haziel. Alrighty, that concludes what MDM was pouring all of our effort into this sprint.
Oh, actually, really quick, I forgot about the docs. There is an existing setup experience guide that is going, it's not live yet, but there's it's in the feature branch. This is going to be updated with all of the like a run through of how to add in the software and the script and what users can expect on the end user side. So it'll live here under the existing macOS setup experience guide. Cool.
All right, back to you, Luke.
Cool, that's awesome. Great work, team. I know there was a lot that went into making that happen. That is it for MDM features this release. We do have one endpoint ops feature, so I'm going to hand that over to Sharon.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. So last small feature on the endpoint ops side, and Ian is not here today, but I'll show a video, quick video for showing this feature. Tell me if you don't hear it.
So as a Bolton engineer, I want to filter operating systems by platform so I can check which macOS, Windows, Linux, ChromeOS, iPadOS, or iOS hosts have vulnerabilities. This helps narrow things down when you have a bunch of different OS versions across a fleet of devices that are macOS, iOS, Windows, etc. And you just want to look at one cross-section. So let's see how that looks in action. Thanks to Lucas for letting me borrow his fleet instance that has a lot more hosts than mine does.
Hey, Sharon, would you mind restarting Ian's video and sharing the audio from your computer? It was a little hard to hear over the speaker.
Oh, sure. 1 second. I mean, forgot that. They moved the share video, share audio, share sound. There it goes. Okay. Optimize for video share. Okay. Sorry about that.
So as a Bolton engineer, I want to filter operating systems by platform so that I can check which macOS, Windows, Linux, ChromeOS, iPadOS, or iOS hosts have vulnerabilities. This helps narrow things down when you have a bunch of different OS versions across a fleet of devices that are macOS, iOS, Windows, etc. And you just want to look at one cross-section. So let's see how that looks in action. Thanks to Lucas for letting me borrow his fleet instance that has a lot more hosts than mine does. So normal view is here. Let's filter to only Macs, only Windows machines, and only Linux machines.
Okay, any questions about that? If not, then we'll continue with the improvements, but back to you, Luke.
Great. Thank you, everyone. That concludes the features going out in this release. Looks like it may be possible for us to bring sprint demos down to 1 hour in the future, since we're not going to be demoing all of the bugs and improvements. If there is something of particular note that you think customers might be asking about, please do it. Go ahead and demo it. But we do want to go through and recognize all the hard work that went into that. Despite all the great features we pushed, we also were able to prioritize a lot of bugs and start making some progress on our bug backlog. So I'm going to hand over to Endpoint Ops and Sharon to go through and share all the bug fixes and improvements this sprint.
Okay, and again, we start with Ian. I hope I don't forget to share sound. Yeah, sharing, and let's start with that.
The install will still show as you, but if you have an install happening as the result of a billing policy, then that will show as fleet. There are some additional improvements on that that will land later in this issue. This matches the behavior with script that landed in 4.58. And this is basically a duplicate issue of the one I just showed. Also, if you edit a software installer previously, if you went into install details, we would show the installer package file name of the latest upload of an installer for that particular title, for that particular team. That has now been revised to where going forward, if you have an install with a given package and then change the package, then the install details will correctly show that you installed the old package, not the new one. There are some nuances around migrating existing data on this. You can read more about those in the changelog. Next up, when you clicked into details on an install that had been had their installation record deleted, we were retrying and showing a 500 error message sort of thing. That has been revised to a more descriptive, hey, we just don't have this data anymore message in the UI. As another UI fix, previously, if the install status was blank, which there are a few corner cases where that is still the most reasonable status to show, we were showing a full page front end error. That has now been fixed. We now just show a little pending icon next to the install details header. Finally, there were a number of cases where we were showing a blank install status because the installer had been modified and we wanted to keep install data out of installation stats for the package. This modification, this fix, tweaks the details endpoint for an install to where we still pass the status through whether something was successfully installed, even though the associated installer has since been modified.
Okay, so that's Ian stuff, and let me look at the next. So next we have Jacob. Jacob, please take it.
Hey everyone, so I'll just show you quickly what was, I think, a common complaint with Flash messages. So it did some revamp of the underlying context and reducer infrastructure around those. So this has been, I've updated this to intentionally fail. Don't worry, it's not going to fail in production. Oh, let's get fresh. So here's a Flash message. As many of us have noted, we formerly weren't able to click under the Flash message, but now we can do that. And you'll see that it persists indefinitely, the error messages. And now if you change, you can again still click the X to close it, but if you change the URL in any way, so if you navigate, it'll go away.
Jacob, I'm not seeing anything, just seeing a static screen. Is it just me?
Ah, thank you, Victor. I was sharing the wrong Chrome window, so I'll show you guys that one more time. So when we have an error message here, it'll persist and we can click under it. So I'll click under it to navigate away. Whenever the URL changes, it'll go away. And that is, that's it for that one. And I'll pass it back to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Jacob. And last for the MDM improvements is Tim.
I might have put my stuff in the wrong section. But I will. Oops. I'll
Yeah, how
share
about
it.
you
I can-
present them?
I can press the right button here. Here we go. So first bug here, we're failing to report host issues in larger environments. We've found this in customer environments and in load test. Basically, kind of a back-end issue with RDS. Table sizes were getting too big, so some query optimization there, which no longer happen. Those were kind of failing silently a bit in cron. So that's resolved. This one has kind of been a pet peeve of mine for a little while with scripts. They were not timing out properly. I think I've had several conversations with many folks on this call about this. It is now a kind of consistent behavior across the board on how we, even if a command is in progress, we still, we will kill that command at the timeout interval period. And sort of a small one, we were incorrectly we had some false positives with IntelliJ early access. I don't remember what the P stands for, but their early access products we're reporting as regular IntelliJ. That's it.
Okay, thanks, team. And that concludes the improvements. So back to you, Luke.
Thanks, y'all. Great improvements. Over to MDM product group for their bug fixes and improvements. George, take it away.
Thank you. Got these here. We had one unreleased bug that made it out. It never got cherry picked into the last release, so this is now fixed. So the fleet maintained apps for Chrome will now work. We have a previously known issue where the profiles would be stuck even if they never got sent to a host. Basically, they would never go away. This was now also rectified for specifically DDM profiles. The ABM token renewal workflow was broken in 4.58, and that has been resolved. And then we have a couple of things from Victor where we have remove pending device from Fleet when it's removed from ABM. So all the little ghost hosts that you have in Fleet, if you've removed it from ABM, now that ghost host will be removed from your Fleet instance. We have a render update. I believe that's to include free Redis using render.
I can add some more context to that. So we document that we can deploy Fleet on render, but currently in our deployment, we're using basically an image, and render provides a Redis service. But we weren't able to use it because we weren't able to use it for a small reason. So now that's fixed. So once this is released, we can update our template to use that Redis service. And there is a free tier for that Redis service.
All right.
I can cover the next ones.
Take it away, Victor.
Yeah.
Go ahead and finish it off.
For GitOps, we have now passing CI tests in our Fleet GitOps repo. So that's good. We get that green check mark. I also fixed some bugs for free users, and we're gonna be adding these tests on GitLab as well once I get access, and it's gonna need to be next sprint because we need these fixes for the free users to be released. And then the last thing, as part of investigation of another issue, I updated our OpenTelemetry libraries, and I'll provide more context for that next week at the Eng Together.
Alrighty, thanks so much. And that's it for MDM updates.
Love the background music, George.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just got some cool, relaxing.
No, it was great. I think you've started a new tradition for the bug fixes and improvements. Since we're not demoing, we can turn it into a whole audio-visual experience.
everybody grab your cozy, spa materials, and
Yeah, maybe the product groups should vote on what background music should play during their bug fixes and improvements. I think Lucas suggests heavy metal, which would be a whole other experience that I like. Jazz.
Absolutely.
Right. Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Great improvements. Awesome to see making progress and closing out some that looked pretty old. So that's cool. Over to Sharon and Endpoint Ops for their Endpoint Ops bug fixes and improvements.
Okay, thank you. And we started with Endpoint Ops improvements with the team earlier, which was accidentally put on the MDM. And we'll continue with Ian again. So let me share Zoom. And
so there are a couple
hopefully
of
that's okay.
fixes that I helped land in 4.59. First off, if you created a user without going through the invite process, then the HTTP response for that API call would have basically go 0 values for the created at and updated at timestamps for that user. That's now been fixed to where they show the current date and time. Next, we have a documentation fix. Fleet Control didn't actually call out that its packaging functions relied on Docker, depending on platform, both of the host and of the destination package. So now if you click through from the learn more link about Fleet Control when creating a installer package for Fleet D, you wind up here. This gives you a little bit of information and then says, hey, if you're actually building packages, you may need additional dependencies. You click that, and we wind up here. So depending on platform, you may need Docker, you may need Wine, and that's now all listed right here.
Okay, and next we have Rachel. Rachel, one of the bugs that Rachel solved is actually, I would think it's a new feature. So maybe a short presentation there too. Rachel, please take it.
Hey, everybody. Go ahead and share my screen. So I'm just going to go over 22606, which is here. And this is just basically, Rachel and I did some chaos engineering and figuring out how to break our app as much as possible. And I decided to just try to tab through it using keyboard accessibility and ended up with like a zillion bazillion snags. And while working on this, I've found even more snags. So just a few things about keyboard accessibility is a lot of our users are engineers, so they might be used to things like Vim where they're tabbing through and using only the keyboard to work. But when you get to Fleet, it's not actually tabbable and you can't actually use the keyboard to get anything done, which is it's a little depressing, but we're going to have a growth mindset about it. And then what's helpful for the few people who do this is going to be helpful for all. So yeah, let's see here. And just looking at some of this stuff, I found a few other tickets as old as 1066, just talking about accessibility that is still open. So hopefully we can get some of these closed out. I'm just going to show you guys dog food as an example. Let's just look at like the host page. Sorry, Jacob, I was on your team earlier. And if you're trying to tab through this, you can see that my managing role secrets is now highlighted. Add host is now highlighted. It looks like it's working well. And then all of a sudden, I'm still tabbing. I'm stuck on this drop down, which is an awful experience. If I'm tabbing through more, I can check my boxes, which is great. But if I want to go back to that checkbox, I can't tell that it's highlighted. So I don't know that it's actually highlighted compared to like another checkbox. So there's just a lot of these different snags that I found throughout the app. And hopefully we're going to be able to allow users to go through entire workflows. One of the ones that a former security engineer here asked for was to be able to run a live query. So if I go to create a live query, here's one of the snags. I'm stuck in my query editor when I'm trying to tab through or back tab through. If I hit escape, I can't escape. So I'd have to actually use like my mouse for that. You can't even tell I'm on the user drop down right now. That's another one. if I try to go through all of these and I get to target specific hosts, it actually skips it. So it goes straight to the cancel button. So there's just been a lot of can of worms. I think this took me like pretty much a whole sprint other than the index stuff to work on. So let me just show you some of the fixes so you can feel a little bit better about, the cobwebs in our closets. So here I am on all teams. You can see my tabbing. Ta-da, I'm not even stuck on this. You can see now, if you zoom in a little bit, there's a focus visible state now, so you can tell which checkbox you are currently on. I cleaned up some of these outlines as well. If you are on something that has like a view all host link, you can now see that as well. So now you can actually see that we're hovering over view all hosts. That wasn't existing before, so you can do that. Things like this little X, you couldn't tell that we would, if you hit enter, you would be removing that filter. So lots of things are being improved. Here's just a list of all the things. The SQL YAML editor, that is now cleaned up, which is awesome. And I'll show you guys how you can get in and out of that. We still want tabbing because a lot of users like to put tabs in really long SQL or YAML files. But if you hit escape, you can still tab through the app. So now I can live query, for example. And things I've learned is Chrome is rated best for accessibility. So all of these are being tested and working on Chrome. Firefox and Safari are a little bit lacking, and thus it's been a lot tougher trying to get all of the things working on all of the browsers. So if you wanted to do these kind of things, please use Chrome. There's still some stuff I'm working on, like the Teams dropdown is still not tabbable. Modals are wonky. One example is like if you have the cancel button highlighted and you hit enter, it'll submit, which is awful. So I'm still working on that. The user menu dropdown is built with a button and not actually our React Select library. So it has different keyboard behaviors. So I need to work on that. We can't actually run the live query flow with the select targets dropdown yet because it won't select the target. It can only like highlight it. So I got to work on that. Lots of keys and stuff need to be updated. And yeah, so hopefully this sprint is going to really help with users being more confident in tabbing through our app. And then in another final pass, we'll be able to go through a lot of the user flows as well. Oh, another one is like upload button. See if there's an upload button. Where's something that can upload scripts. So you can't even get to the upload button right now. And if you press enter space, it doesn't even open. So that's also fixed as well.
Rachel, are we planning to add these tests to QA Wolf?
That would be great if we have the bandwidth for QA Wolf to have these tests. I'd love to add them. I know we have a limited amount of QA Wolf tests, so.
We are getting close, but I probably what we need to do is evaluate some of the early tests and make sure that they're still providing value and the most important things to test. And then we can also increase that test coverage over time if we have high value things. Love that improvement, Rachel, and your growth mindset and rigor. So thanks for doing that. And our users, thank you, our power users.
Yeah, just staying positive through all of it. It's a lot.
Which I know can be hard. We're working with App Index.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Last we have Jacob with another bug that actually led to a kind of a new feature, slowness of presenting hundreds of queries, ended up being paginated. So Jacob, maybe a quick presentation here.
Yeah, I'll second the awesome stuff, Rachel. I've been enjoying the improved tabability already. So we had a bug where, I'll let you look yourself. So when we have hundreds of queries, the manage queries page is going quite slow. And we decided that the solution was to paginate the manage queries page. So I'll just in case anyone missed that. Let that load while I'm checking out the fix. Okay, it's building. And one more time, just so we can see the network response. Okay, so now you may have noticed that was a lot faster. And that's because we are now paginating both on the front end and consuming a paginated backend response. So you'll see we've got a manageable number of queries here, specifically 20, which is defined by the call to the API. So we said for page 20, and the response, we get our count of total results and the meta that we want for pagination through these results. And then we can search and all that good stuff. And yeah, that's it. So queries page will be paginated.
Thank you, Jacob. And one last thing.
I'm back.
Oh, sorry, any questions for Jacob? Not, then thank you. One last thing is part of keeping the CIS CIS auditing updated. We updated the macOS 13 and macOS 14 to the latest version of the CIS document. And Luke, that's wrapping up everything on our team.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Exciting release. Looking forward to getting it out. Going back to something that Mike mentioned in the chat, while some competitors claimed support for Linux devices as of 2023, we were the first to be able to provide remote device lock on Linux desktop, which is cool, but I just can't believe the gallium of not supporting Linux sooner from our competitors. But that presents an opportunity for us. So cool. Thanks, everybody. Going to give you a little bit of time back. Have a great Friday.
Bye, everyone.